This is Nutmeg Nation.
For those of the Caribbean or other parts of the world that are listening, I'm Carlene, and this is Magnation. I have with me Grace Cameron, creator of Jamaican Eats. You know, feeling the vibe already. Not necessarily, but we're creating a vibe.
Right.
So, creating a conversation about something important, you know, and hopefully you'll check out the magazine or subscribe or go online and see what the magazine is all about, because it's come a long way. Like, I mean, started the magazine when I was in high school. So, I mean, if we're looking at
2006.
2006. Yeah, because when you're talking about time frame going back. Okay, so I was in my third year of university when you started the magazine. And
right.
The one thing that I can relate as someone who likes to write, I always was a writer too. Not necessarily stories, but poems. That was my thing. I would wake up at night. And so my sister said to me years ago, I should have listened to her at that time. I should have started. I wanted to be a journalist. So I changed my mind when I graduated from English. And I was like, this is a hard industry to work in because journalism has changed. It's not the same anymore. I graduated in 2000, right? And so when I heard you talk about writing, and even getting into Ryerson, you got into one of the hardest programs.
Ryerson's
journalism program is very competitive. You know what I mean? And so I remember submitting my portfolio, and I'm like, I dropped it in the box. Grace, you should have seen the amount of portfolios in that box. I'm like, chances of getting in seemed pretty slim at that point because of the competition. But obviously, it's amazing that you went there. You know what I mean? And had that experience, and here we are now. So,
but you know what? I never doubted that I could. It never entered my mind to think that I couldn't. I knew this is what I wanted to do. I applied to Ryerson in the way that I applied to Carleton in Ottawa, their program, as well as Western, as well as York and so on. I got accepted at all of them, but I knew Ryerson was where I wanted to be, you know, and nobody told me that I couldn't do it because I grew up being told that I could, you know. I'm grateful that I was fortunate enough to be raised in a community of people who told me that I could and who believed in me. So there was nothing that told me that I couldn't or wouldn't, you know. Yeah.
And that goes a long way. When you talk about where you're going and where you're coming from, and you had the support from time. I can hear it in your voice. There was no stopping you. You know, we're talking about Jamaica and Jamaican people and as a culture and as a group. And if you have the support of your community, it goes a long way. That means that
it's everything.
Yes, it is. When the going gets tough, and you have the support and you have the push, it's a lot harder when you don't have the support we all need a little push from if it's not our family, our friend, you know.
Absolutely, you know, and I have to say, even when I started Jamaican Eats, there were many people or some people who were not supportive. I remember being told that there was a certain group of people after the first edition came out who were taking bets amongst themselves whether or not there would even be a second edition because they didn't believe. And there were many naysayers. But what I chose to focus on was I chose to imagine the ring of people who believe in me. I chose to envision that as those people surrounding me and focused on them. You know, I had people who believed in me. So who was I not to believe in myself?
I'm wondering, your parents, what did they do? Your mom, your parents, is there writing in the family?
Yeah, I didn't grow up with my parents. Like a lot of Jamaicans, my parents actually went to the UK when I was very young. So my father left Jamaica when I was a year old and my mother left when I was 2. And so I grew up with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, and then surrounding me, I had my paternal grandparents, along with all the godmothers, because and godfathers, you know, in the English-speaking Caribbean, you have godmothers and godfathers. Right. So I had all of those people surrounding me and their families, you know. So while my parents, my biological parents weren't there, I had many people who mothered me and fathered me, so to speak. And I'm grateful. I think I got the best of it.
Good. I I hear it in your story. Like you have the conviction is in your voice and in your stories. And I think the one thing I can get from everything that you said, it's like, even when there were challenges along the way, you still had the support. And nothing in life gets handed to us. Like not everyone has that perfect story, but I think it's the journey. Like they say, like as a writer, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Absolutely. And when you fall, you get up. You may stay down for a while, just don't stay there. But I tell you, even just with the magazine, just with readers and some people, what they've done to keep me going. I had, for example, one reader in Westmoreland, in the western part of Jamaica. She's now deceased, who did everything and anything to help me to keep moving. And there are many of those people along the way. So I am grateful for that. And my mission, again, the thought is that through doing and continuing this magazine, as well as the Caribbean themed events in Toronto, by elevating and celebrating who we are, I am paying them back in some ways. I'm paying homage to all of that and expressing my gratitude, and also to leave a legacy that is positive, but also when you live abroad, to also express yourself and share your stories in ways for other people of your culture who are constantly being told or given negative stories about who we are.
Right.
And also to show people, my aim is not to show people to like us, because that's whatever, but to put out again our stories as to who we are, and invite people to be a part of it if they want to. But we control the narrative, not somebody else, because you're nobody if you do not control your own narrative.
Yeah, I hear like the passion there, like the narrative and the story and controlling the narrative. And I think as I look through everything, even when I looked through it before, it's like the images and the stories and the recipes. And I'm excited that I ordered a magazine, a few issues, so I could see for myself. Because like you said, in the traditional sense of the word, I think there's something to be said for having a magazine in your hand versus the digital copy. It does. For me, as someone who's an avid reader back then, I read a lot of books. I read magazines myself. I prefer the physical copy to look at it and have something to look back on. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? You go back and read it again. And the world is changing and we have to adapt to the change in that way, like you said, when you're talking about changing the narrative. And not necessarily, so when I say this, not necessarily changing the narrative, but creating your story from your community, but also going with the times. Yes.
Using the tools that are available today, because a digital magazine is absolutely available.
Yeah.
So people can choose to order digital copies instead of the paper copies. It's just that most people want the paper copies, but the digital magazine is very much available. And also, again, although this is so geographic specific, again, in Toronto, people across Toronto can experience a living magazine, so to speak, when they come to these events. So for example, Labor Day weekend, September 1, I will be doing another event, Caribbean Street Food Festival. The first time since 2019, I'm bringing it back. It's going to be at Stacked Market. I mentioned that because at that event, yes, you will have the food because food brings people, but we're also going to be having the dominoes and the Ludo games. But we're also going to be, the last time that we did something we call the Amazing Race Caribbean style. And
what's that? Tell me about the Amazing Race Caribbean
Just think of the Amazing Race.
Oh, right.
So we had people run around and they had to skip. They had to skip. They had to do hopscotch.
Oh, yeah.
They had to answer questions about history and the culture of the Caribbean. And then, the top 3 got prizes. So again, it's telling our stories without saying to people, come here, I'm educating you. And again, it's showing to maybe people of Jamaican and Caribbean descent who have grown up here, who might feel a way sometimes about who they are, that this is who we are,
I mean, as a culture, as someone I've lived here most of my life, Jamaica Day, or even the Caribbean culture as a whole, bringing Carnival brings people together. They get to celebrate with food, music, dance, everything. But even Jamaica Day, it's changed a lot. We talk about the history of the magazine, but even as a people and a culture, I remember being a kid and going to Kitty's Carnival. And, a lot of Jamaican stores were at Dufferin and Caledonia. We were there and look back now because even little Jamaica has changed. You know what I mean? As an area, it's so disappointing.
Carlene, there are lots of opportunities in these changes.
Yeah.
It's to look and see maybe the silver linings and grab those and ride them for whatever they're worth.
Right.
Changes can be challenging, but the thing is if you know who you are, that's your core. And one of the things I didn't mention, I remember going to high school here in Toronto. I didn't always feel good about being Jamaican because the stories I was fed and the media portrayal for me was so negative. It took going back there to understand and to see and appreciate who we are. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important. For me, again, I'm not telling anybody how to be. I am simply, in my mind and my way, elevating and celebrating who we are. People can take from it what they will. And just like we started the conversation regarding the hurricanes, life will always bring hurricanes in so many different ways. But as a people, we have fallen and we have gotten back up. And let me just say, in the case of Jamaica and Trinidad, then we make music to some of these adversities and these things that we go through,
Yeah. So much talent in the Caribbean.
The resilience.
Yes. Yeah. We go through so much.
That's to be celebrated.
We were talking about the hurricane and, it's obviously devastating what happened. As I reflect on that, it's hard to see, the devastation and all the ruin. But I think it's important to know that there are a lot of Grenadians and people from the Caribbean all over the world willing to help and in any way that they can to bring community back. Will take some time, obviously, but all it takes one person to start.
We've been there.
Yeah.
As Caribbean people, and particularly Afro-descended Caribbean people, we have been there.
Yeah.
And we have bounced back. What we need to remember is our sense of community and who we are, and to help our brothers and sisters and celebrate who we are in ways that are positive. We've been there. That's been our history this side of the world. Our history didn't start that way because we have a rich, deep culture as Afro-descended people on the other side. But on this side, we've been through that. We've been here.
Yeah, you said we have a history. We have a history of slavery all over the Caribbean. And the history of slavery that has brought us to where we are now. And I think when slavery was abolished, we celebrated with Carnival. And that's what I've learned through some of my learning through Grenada. You know what I mean? And I don't know what the history is in Jamaica when it comes to that.
The way that I would put it, slavery is not our history. It's just a part of things. And we responded in a way that we got rid of the oppressors and we fought back in many different ways. There's so many stories that have never been told that have died with people. I think even of Haiti. In 1804, Haiti kicked out the French. That's amazing. Yes, I know Haiti has suffered because the West has bled Haiti dry because they had to pay these Europeans and Americans, whatever, for their freedom. So it's not like Haiti was a poor country and the people are just whatever. They were devastated in that way, but they didn't, remember, we didn't just sit back and remain enslaved. Because I don't know about you, no. I don't come from slave people. No. I come from Afro-descended people who were enslaved. Right. And that's a big difference that I made. We didn't just stay there, and we have grown to the point where, look, in many places, Caribbean people, not just Jamaican people, we are shining in amazing ways, despite everything. We are amazing.
Of course. If you look back in time until now, we've done a lot, there's a lot of prominent names. We can go down the list, right? Everyone has a very interesting story. It took your grandmother and your godmothers and the community to help become who you are as a person, to share your story and other people's story. Because if someone can't tell their story, they need someone to help them create that story or share that story if they're willing. Yes. And so it's important that you have established throughout the community together that way. It's a beautiful thing. And thanks for sharing your story.
Yes. Yes.
Look forward to that Labor Day event.
It will be on Eventbrite. Okay. And it's called Caribbean Street Food Festival. Okay. Should anybody look now, they would get probably information from the 2019 event that we did, but certainly 2024 within a week or two on Eventbrite and on socials, we will have information about the 2024 Caribbean Street Food Festival at Stacked Market. Stacked Market is at Bathurst in Front.
Right, great area.
So it's in Toronto. Stacked Market has become known as a place to have events. And so it's going to be there. We will, as we have had in many other events, we'll have contests. We'll have the DJ. We will have so many different things. We are even teaming up with Caribbean Tales Film Festival. Their theme for this year is reconnecting with your past, meaning reconnecting with your roots in the Caribbean. And we're going to have some fun with that as well. So stay tuned.
Yes. And I will share with those in my community as well. And Jamaican Eats, you're on Facebook. Are you also on Instagram?
Yes. So on Facebook, both Jamaican Eats Facebook page and group. And then on Instagram, it's Jamaican Eats magazine. So same thing, but magazine added to the Facebook. Yeah.
Okay.
The magazines are available, by the way, on Amazon.
Oh, great.
The first edition for 2024 is just about ready. I'll get it from the printer within a couple of days.
I'm excited. I'm going to get my first issue. You have a new follower, so I just followed.
Thank you so much.
On Instagram. Yeah, thank you so much, Grace, for being a guest. And you know how you say the community. If it wasn't for my friend Liz, I wouldn't have met you. So I have to thank her. And so it's interesting, like just networking with people and how one person leads you to another person and just the things that can happen because of it.
Yeah. It's like one ant cannot move a mountain, but you get 1 million ants together and they can move that darn mountain. And I think as Caribbean people, and particularly as Afro-descended Caribbean people, we need to have that mindset of how do we work together and to remember it's about unity, not uniformity. So we don't all have to be the same. We can have our great differences and that's fine because we wouldn't be human beings, but we have to be strategic. It's about unity, not uniformity.
Yes, the Caribbean culture and, Magnation, I created it for Grenadians and also the Caribbean culture and people around the world to share stories and to educate those who don't know about stories.
And now we'll have to have you in the edition of the magazine that comes out after this one. So we'll talk about that.
For sure. Thank you so much. I'm Carlene, and thank you, Grace, for being so patient. I honestly, truly know.
Right. Yeah. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to Nutmeg Nation with Carlene Humphrey.